It's been a great year so far for rock music, and now we've got one of America's finest joining the fray with an explosive new album. Let's see what this one is all about. Hi everyone, I'm Paul Crayson, and you're watching Music Mentions. Today I'm doing a deep dive review of Pearl Jam's latest release titled Dark Matter. Relax a little and settle in because I cover info about the album that you're not going to get from any other reviewers on YouTube. I'll start with a little background on the band and its members, cover some release notes followed by the track listing and song lengths. Then I'm going to get into the album title and the cover art. I'm going to touch on some general album observations, go into the individual songs, and then I'm going to wrap things up with an overall album rating. So who is Pearl Jam? Even if you've never heard any of Pearl Jam's music, you've certainly heard about the band. One of the seminal and most popular bands of the early 90s, so-called grunge era. The band formed in 1990 from the ashes of two other bands, Green River and the absolutely wonderful Mother Love Bone. They exploded on the scene with their classic debut album 10 in 1991 that gripped America and the world when MTV was still about the music. MTV's ability to launch bands into the zeitgeist at the time was unprecedented and firmly placed Pearl Jam into the higher echelons of the music industry. Although many describe this as an overnight success, it's important to know that the band members had all been playing in various bands prior to the formation of Pearl Jam, so they weren't without experience. They went on to release another 10 records over the years before Dark Matter and had sold around 85 million albums worldwide as of 2018. They also have established a reputation as a fantastic and fiery live band with a hardcore audience that appreciated set lists that varied from performance to performance. Their last album, which I thought was pretty decent, was called Gigaton and was released in 2020. Pearl Jam's sound has been described as grunge, alternative rock, and hard rock. Now let's take a look at the band members. First, we've got Eddie Vedder. He's 59 years old. He's the band's vocalist and main lyricist, but also plays guitar and piano on Dark Matter. And next, we have Mike McCready. He's 58 years old and is the band's lead guitarist and also plays some piano on this release. Next, we have Stone Gossard. He's 57 years old and plays the rhythm guitar. And then we have Jeff Ament. He's 61 years old and is the band's bassist, but also plays some guitar on Dark Matter. And finally, we've got Matt Cameron. He's also 61 and is the band's fabulous drummer. He joined Pearl Jam in 1998 after being the drummer for one of the greatest bands of all time, Soundgarden. Note that he still played with Soundgarden after they reunited in 2010. Dark Matter also features a special guest on all of the tracks. He is the amazing Josh Klinghoffer, who is best known for being the Red Hot Chili Peppers guitarist for a minute. On this album, he plays guitar, keyboards, and piano. And now for some release notes. This album was released on April 19th of 2024, and it's Pearl Jam's 12th full album of original studio material. It was released on Pearl Jam's own Monkey Wrench Records and was produced by Uber producer of the day, Andrew Watt, who also plays on the album and contributes some guitar, keyboards, and piano. The mixing was done by Serban Gania and the mastering was done by Matt Colton. The recording started in Watt's home studio, but it finished at Rick Rubin's Shangri-La studio in Malibu, California. There were 3 singles that were released prior to the album release. Now let's switch over to the track listing and the song lengths. There are only 11 songs on Dark Matter. Running is the shortest song at 2 minutes and 19 seconds. Upper Hand is the longest at 5 minutes and 57 seconds. The total album length is just a little bit over 48 minutes. Now let's talk about the album title and the cover. The album title is called Dark Matter and is taken from one of the song titles. It is an obvious reference to a non-luminous material that is postulated to exist in space. The term was coined in 1933 by Fritz Zwicky of the California Institute of Technology, but it's still unknown if it is actually a real thing. The other meaning I interpret behind dark matter, based on the song's lyrics, is that it refers to the dark state of things in America and the world. The album cover aligns with astrophysics' definition of dark matter with its mostly black photographic canvas. The cover was done by artist, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly here, Alexander Nejdalov, and it's a light painting, which is defined as an artistic form of photography where images are created by adjusting a camera's exposure for an extended period of time and using a light source such as a flashlight to quote-unquote paint in the dark. The final image can only be seen after the painting is done, so the artist can't undo the image and is essentially painting in the dark. Pretty cool. There is a bright orange and yellow image that is the centerpiece of the cover. If you stare at it long enough, you can discern various shapes and figures within it. I also think there's a certain similarity to female anatomy here, but maybe that's just me. Remember Metallica's Reload album cover? Or it could be a representation of the Eye of Sauron, who knows? Anyway, there are latitudinal lines emanating from the center that appear to wrap from back to front. They reminded me of Earth's magnetic field if you tilt the Earth 90 degrees. Another thought that came to mind was that the whole thing looked like some multi-legged spider or insect of some kind. It's a very modern cover and quite different from what Pearl Jam has done before. However, considering the energy and electric nature of the music, I think they did a good job with this cover. Now for some general album observations. This is a great sounding rock record, which shouldn't be a surprise given the folks in charge of the production, mixing, and mastering. It's really punchy, well balanced, and not too sonically hot sounding. The low end sounds great with definition to the drums and bass, and the guitars sound wonderful. There's a lot going on in these tunes, but the instruments are not too blurred and you can detect the edges fairly easily. The overall vibe is energetic and, importantly, very organic. There's a naturalness to the sound that I really appreciated while listening. You aren't taken out of the moment through distracting studio effects that a lot of modern producers like to throw at you. Now let's dig into the tunes. First, we've got Scared of Fear. This kickoff tune starts with a little atmospheric ramp up and then some bouncy big star chords to get us on our way. The tune exists somewhere in an upper mid-tempo with stuttering drums that accent the lyrical lines like exclamation marks. Mike and Stone's guitars are hard-panned left and right and sound great. And midway through, we get a great solo from Mike. Eddie's voice sounds emotional and powerful. For me, the bridge section that builds up brilliantly is the highlight. And listen to Matt's amazing drumming during that bridge. The choruses are likewise strong and melodic. Let's look at the lyrics from the last chorus. You're hurting yourself, it's plain to see. I think you're hurting yourself just to hurt me. We used to laugh, we used to sing, we used to dance, we had our own scene. Hurting yourself, it's plain to see. I think you're hurting yourself 'cause you hurt me. We used to laugh, we used to dream, we used to dance, we used to believe. The lyrical theme here appears to be one of a close relationship gone bad through self-destruction by one of the parties. It could be an allusion to someone that fell into substance abuse or other type of self-harm and ruined the relationship with Eddie. Eddie accuses the person of doing it to hurt Eddie and then continues because he hurt Eddie. Quite the emotional tangle. This initial song is a great start to the album. There's nothing new stylistically here, but what you get is a classic Pearl Jam sounding rock song, and a really good one at that. Next is React Respond. We get an injection of intensity and some truly amazing vocals from Eddie on this one. There's a fuzzy bass that dances with the guitars as the guitars bounce across the channels again. A simple but powerful guitar figure is featured throughout the tune. The choruses have these fast power chords that almost enter punk territory, and there's a powerful over-the-top guitar solo towards the end of the track. And of course, the drums are superb all the way through. Let's turn to some of the lyrics from the second verse. Are we at war with each other? Are you at war with yourself? We could be fighting together instead of fighting ourselves. Start the rebuttal, all part of the game. Yes, what makes us different and what makes us the same. This song appears to me to be a message about America's current internal conflict. Eddie is pleading for embracing our commonality instead of focusing on our differences. He's asking for common togetherness and for thoughtful response instead of heated emotional reaction. What can I say? This is a powerful song both emotionally and lyrically. It's visceral and real in all the best ways. This doesn't sound like a tired and worn-out band going through the motions. It sounds like a band that still has a lot of fuel left in the tank. Song number 3 is called Wreckage. This was the third single and the first one that allows us to catch our breath after that 1-2 punch of Scared of Fear and React Respond. We get some beautiful, fast arpeggiated guitar figures. Eddie's vocals appear to be more upfront and personal, and some really well-produced background vocals add this great element to the mix. Once again, the guitars sound great here, and you may get some Tom Petty learning to fly flashbacks during the latter part of the song. Here are lyrics from one of the pre-choruses. Oh, visited by thoughts and not just in the night, that I no longer give a fuck who is wrong and who's right. This game of winner takes all and all means nothing left. Spoils go the victor and the other left for dead. The wreckage Eddie is referring to is the wreckage of a broken, once deep relationship, and looking in hindsight at what's left. As he combs through the wreckage, he is resigned to what happened and wants to move on, but he is unable to keep from revisiting these thoughts. This song certainly spoke to me on a personal level. Wreckage is one of those radio-friendly Pearl Jam songs that's super melodic and sticky and just beautiful. One of the strongest tracks on the album. Next, we have the title song, Dark Matter. This was the first single. Powerful drums kick us off along with these short, stabby guitar chords similar to Scared of Fear. There's a deep vibrato effect on one of the guitars that gives a sense of instability. Eddie's vocals are driven with intense emotional power as he really leans into it. The rhythm section is a monster, punching us like a prize fighter. Towards the end, we get another guitar solo with a good amount of freak-out energy from Mike. Now let's look at that second verse. You're running away, we're pulling apart in all of this dark matter. I once heard a sin and it stuck in my head. Arrested the press, no one knows what happened next. The lyrical content here is not quite scrutable, but there are some key phrases like we're pulling apart and arrested the press that lead me to believe that Eddie once again has the American political situation in mind. The denigration and attacks on traditional journalistic values and reporting has created a dark space in which we don't know what to believe in and what is actually happening. This is a ferocious Pearl Jam tune. It's full of angst and anger and rage. It's another viscerally powerful song that begs to be cranked up. I imagine this one will blow the roofs off when they play it live on their current tour. Just fantastic. Song number 5 is called Won't Tell. The intensity's dialed down a bit after the ferocity of the previous track. There's this great centerpiece guitar figure that almost sounds like a nod to The Cure. The verses have enough space around them to let Eddie step into them vocally without much interference. Another fine performance from Eddie. The choruses are very melodic with some tasteful background vocals adding emphasis. Now let's look at the first verse. Her eyes were soft and sympathized. A vision so uncompromised floated in. As she pulled the book up off the shelf, her dressing gown and nothing else but a secret grin. And I always had one question, free of all suggestion. Do I say or keep it in? This one is a bit tough to decipher, but my interpretation is that it's about an emotionally locked-in person that has been burned by former love. He has a dream where he's visited by a woman that may be the answer to address a longing within himself to release himself from the broken relationship and to move on. There's nothing terribly notable here except for Won't Tell being another solid PJ tune. It's not a standout track for me compared to the high bars set by other tunes, but it's definitely pleasant and listenable, especially with those Cure-like guitars. Song number 6 is Upper Hand. This almost 6-minute long song starts off with an introduction sounding like the beginning of U2's Where the Streets Have No Name. It's got a moody and contemplative vibe to it and almost plays like a ballad. It's a slow builder with a climactic ending and has a lovely melody sung wonderfully by Eddie. And look at that, we get another welcome song closing guitar solo from Mike. Let's look at the opening verse. The distance to the end is closer now than it's ever been. Road we traveled far, all the lights and sights we saw. No room left on the pages, we filled them up and painted some, though the book, it may never be read, by anyone but me. Where my mind went with these lyrics is that Eddie is contemplating the end of the band. It's not quite there yet, as we know, and may be several years away, but he's feeling that distance closing in and is starting to look back and is feeling somewhat nostalgic. The music has this melancholic feel and that really adds credence to this interpretation. This one grew on me with every listen as its melody started to embed itself in my brain. It's one that pays off with patient listening and time and lyrical absorption. It's a beautiful and an emotional track. Song number 7 is Waiting for Stevie. Boy, does this one have a 90s feel to it. It starts again with the U2 inspired intro, and then we get soaring vocals from Eddie that sound like they came straight from the 10 album. Also, the guitar sound on this one is 90s-esque. It sounds massive. Matt's drumming is ridiculously good again. No surprise there. The guitar solo may be Mike's best on the album. Fast, melodic, and just face-melting. The song concludes with a little coda that echoes the start a little bit. Let's turn to lyrics from the second chorus. You can be loved by everyone and still not feel love. You can relate, but still can't stop or conquer the fear you are what you're not. Would have to take an act of faith to find relief and escape the blame. The song title, Waiting for Stevie, comes from a time when Eddie was waiting for Stevie Wonder to drop by the recording studio, although the title seems to have little to do with the song's lyrical content. The lyrics are, again, a tad inscrutable, but I think they're about self-delusion and how we often think or feel something that simply isn't true, to blame yourself for something that you aren't responsible for. This is a real throwback time machine for me, but in a great way. It's like the 30 years from 10 just don't exist. Great guitars, great vocals, and just a great feeling. What's not to love? Song number 8 is Running. This was the second single. Now we're really rocking. This is easily the hardest hitting track on Dark Matter. It has a punk feel and a pace to it with driving and pounding drums, slashing guitars, and intense vocals from Eddie. The only temporary slowdown is during the bridge. There's a guitar sound that sounds like a siren that amps up the intensity even more. The killer choruses include some punchy background vocals and Eddie singing at a breakneck pace. You think the song will literally explode during the last 20 seconds. Let's look at the chorus lyrics. Dictator, love hater, lost in the tunnel and the tunnel ain't no fun. Now I'm lost in all the shit you're flushing. Victrola, controller, lost in the tunnel and the tunnel's getting funneled like the sewage in the plumbing 'cause we left the fucking water running. All right, I'm really not sure what Eddie's on about here with these lyrics. The song has a sense of paranoia and anger, but at what or at who, it's tough to figure out. It's about running away from something, but I'm not sure what. There's a political tinge with referring to a dictator, so maybe it's a reference to the Republican presidential nominee? Maybe? This is a standout track for me, not just for it being a great driving fast with the top down song, but also for showing what a bunch of guys my age can still do when they really rock out. This is one of my favorites. Something special. We take a 180-degree turn away from the ferocity of Running to this lovely track. It's a bit bouncy and is probably the happiest sounding song. We get acoustic sounding guitars and a killer melody, especially during those choruses. Background vocals are again really tastefully used. Matt's drums provide a very simple backbeat as he knows not to overplay and sounding more like Ringo than Keith Moon. Eddie's singing is again top tier and we get a very short but nice guitar solo at the outro. Here's the second verse. And it's okay should this life knock you down. The twisted wheel, you know it, keeps on spinning round. Bet on yourself, your number's oh so special. And when it gets fucked up, you need a helping hand. Do it yourself, you're not the type to need a man. But if you find one, he better know you're damn special. Eddie has said this track is for his daughters who are now at the age where they will be leaving the nest. It's an empty nest song. Words of advice as your offspring go out into the big mean world. This song's beauty derives from its lyrical content, but that's not to dismiss the melody, which is great. This song is something special indeed. Song 10 is called Got to Give. We start with some brief acoustic guitars before the drums kick in. This plays like a pretty straightforward rock tune. I was getting some Who vibes with this one, especially the power chords during the bridges and also during the bridge with what sounds like some Pete Townsend-inspired guitar figures. There's also this great little piano that appears towards the end that adds a great little melodic sense without calling too much attention to itself. It's a great little touch. Eddie's vocals are unsurprisingly solid, even though this is really a thick-sounding song with a lot of instrumentation going on. The singing during the bridge is absolutely brilliant and some of Eddie's best on Dark Matter. Let's turn to the bridge's lyrics. Getting to the point where I can't breathe. Getting to the point, got nothing to sing. Getting to the point where life don't mean a thing. Let's get to the point we all are heard and seen. Oh, let's get to the point we can believe that we are better together, you and me, yeah. Can take on anyone, if you can see. This tune is about a breakup, it appears, and Eddie is regretting it and now is deciding that it's better to be together than apart. He is trying to convince this person to move on together because he's been miserable since they've been apart. I really enjoyed this song with its classic rock provenance and memorable melodies. It's just a great Pearl Jam song and should be a single. And finally, we get to the last track called Setting Sun. This last track is another slow burner. It starts out with some light percussion and acoustic guitars and Eddie singing in this breathy lower register, very close and intimate. It has an instantly beautiful melancholy melody and is the mellowest tune on the album. However, the bridge does ramp up the energy in a way, and it will give you goosebumps when Eddie pours himself into this song. It's just wonderful. Let's look at the first verse. The cast was made to reset broken bones, but there's no such thing to fix a love gone wrong. Keep knocking the door, 'cause I know someone's there. I wait on the porch hoping someday I'll be let in. They say in the end everything will be okay. If it's not okay, well then, it ain't the end. This is a broken heart song as Eddie yearns to reconcile a love gone wrong. If there's a lyrical theme to the album, it's about a broken or difficult relationships. It's about things falling apart or just about ready to fall apart. In light of the current cultural zeitgeist, it's not surprising that these things are occupying Eddie's mind. Simply a great way to end the album, this tune gave me shivers with its vibe and sentimentality. The last lines have Eddie singing, "Let us not fade," ending the song on a note of hopefulness. So what do I think about this latest album from Pearl Jam? I remember being obsessed with their first few releases, like many of us were, but then I sort of fell away from the band as I thought subsequent releases were spotty and other bands were yanking my listening attention. Well, all I have to say is that I'm stunned with what they've delivered with Dark Matter. This is as close to a perfect Pearl Jam album as I can imagine, and considering it's after 30 plus years into their career, it's a slight miracle. The album is tight with no real throwaway tracks. It's dynamic and it encompasses this great range of energy and emotion. Eddie is still one of the most emotional and powerful vocalists in the game, and all the band members' performances are simply top-notch. With that said, I have to single out Andrew Watt for working his magic once again with an older band and injecting a focus and passion into them when they could have just as easily phoned it in. He pushed them to be their very best and brought out their real essence, just like he did producing the Stones' last album. He didn't overproduce or sterilize anything, thus allowing the emotional heart of the band to shine through and connect directly with us, the listeners. In this age of studio wizardry and all sort of sonic toys at his fingertips, it's so refreshing to just let the music and performances shine through. So who's this album for? If you're a rock fan, it's a no-brainer. But even if you haven't listened to Pearl Jam in years, I'd urge you to give this one a shot. I'm sure it'll surprise you in a good way. As usual, I'd also urge everyone to live with the record for a while to allow it to sink in. It's one of those records that will slowly bore into you and make you want to hit that repeat button to experience it all over again. So with all that said, I'm giving this album a rating of 9.5 out of 10. Now, your mileage may vary. You guys know the drill. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you indifferent and don't care? Let me know in the comments below, and let me know why, all right? Okay, thanks, guys. Appreciate you guys watching my video. Back to the end again. It was another long one. Yeah, I know, but that's the way I roll, right? Okay, hit that like, hit that subscribe and the notification. I'll catch you cats next time.